to the Spirit Podcast.
We think offerings are flowers, candles, coins left on headstones, soft prayers under breath. But that's not the whole story, because sometimes the offering is you, your fear, your attention, your ache to connect, your energy poured out into a grave that was never yours to tend. Tonight, we step into that liminal space between the living and the dead, between devotion and depletion, between honoring and haunting. We've spent time walking among the silent companions, wooden figures, mannequins, dolls, shadows, all shaped in our image and waiting. But now, we ask the deeper question: what keeps a spirit here? Why do some never move on? And what do we offer them, knowingly or not, to keep them fed? This isn't just about ghosts. It's about memory, debt, grief, curiosity, and the things that feast in silence when the veil grows thin. So bring your lantern and walk with me into the offerings we've made. Some sacred, some dangerous, some still echoing beneath our feet. When we hear the word offering, we think of ritual, a bowl of milk on a shrine, coins laid gently at a grave, candles lit on All Souls' Night, the quiet act of grieving something in reverence and hope or in mourning. But the dead do not eat coins, they do not sip wax, they do not need food. So what do they take? They take what holds meaning: memory, emotion, attention, and yes, sometimes even your energy. We offer through what we feel more than what we place. A photo you can't stop looking at, a story you keep retelling, a presence you talk to more than the living. You are giving something every time you engage with the dead. Not all of it is wrong. Some of it is beautiful. Grief is holy. Remembrance is sacred. But not all offerings are made with awareness, and not all spirits accept with grace. Because an offering, in essence, is an exchange. And if you do not know what you're giving, you will not know what you're getting back. This is the danger of feeding a presence out of loneliness, or fascination, or unhealed sorrow. Because some things are hungry, and some things do not stop. Not all spirits stay because they're trapped. Some stay because they're welcomed, over and over, remembered every day, spoken of with longing, called upon intentionally or not, and some because they're still being fed. Spirits respond to energy. They come where the veil thins, but they stay where the offering continues. Sometimes that offering is love. Sometimes it's pain. Sometimes it's the endless cycle of retelling the tragedy instead of letting the soul rest. And sometimes a spirit stays not because it wants to, but because we won't let it go. This is the shadow side of devotion, the grief that becomes a tether, the child who whispers to a lost grandparent nightly, not knowing they're holding the soul here with invisible threads of need. Or the paranormal investigator who keeps returning to the same haunted room, drawing the same presence, fueling it with fascinations, feeding it with fear over and over again, just for a moment of proof. Even reverence can become a ritual of restlessness if it's not balanced with release. We say we want the dead to move on, but how many of us keep them in place with our attention? How many have become the flame that warms them and the anchor that weighs them? Not all spirits are asking to stay. Some are simply answering this echo we've been sending again and again and again. There's a difference between an offering and a contract. One is given freely, with intention, in alignment. You light a candle for your grandmother. You leave bread at Samhain. You whisper a name into prayer and release it with love. But a contract, that's something else. A contract is entered often without knowing. It's when you begin to feed something regularly, unconsciously, and with no clear end. It may be in grief or guilt or even curiosity, but over time you notice you feel drained, obsessed, haunted in thought more than in space. Maybe the presence was once subtle, comforting even. Now it feels hungrier, more demanding, more present when you're weak. This is the contract you didn't know you signed. Because while sacred offerings are anchored in choice, spiritual contracts often arise from emotional repetition. That TikTok you keep watching of haunted dolls being fed, that ghost story you rewatch feeling a strange pull in your chest, that grave you visit often, leaving not just flowers but pieces of yourself, even digital rituals become doorways. When we give our energy, especially with focus, emotion, and frequency, we begin to build relationship. And relationship without clear terms is a contract. So the question becomes, who have you made offerings to without realizing they were bargains? And how many spirits are standing at your door, not because they're evil, but because you train them to expect a meal? Not all spirits take what is given. Some take more than they're offered, more than you can afford, and sometimes more than they were ever owed. These are the hungry dead, and they exist in nearly every culture. In Slavic folklore, they are the Nav, the unquiet dead, spirits who died tragically, violently, or forgotten. They linger in thresholds between worlds and feed on the warmth of the living. In Chinese tradition, the hungry ghost roams the world with insatiable craving. A mouth too small, a belly too vast, a punishment for greed or neglect. In Norse myth, there are the Draugr, undead guardians of grave treasure, corporeal and vengeful, feeding not just on flesh, but on vitality. And then there are the ones who look familiar. An ancestor, maybe, a friend who passed, a child spirit in your home that smiles from the corner. But over time, they grow stronger, not from your offerings, but from your attachment. You feel exhausted, emotional for no reason. You sense them in the room, even when you didn't call them. They begin to expect your attention, to feel entitled to your light. This is the point where ancestor work turns into ancestral entanglement. Not all spirits want peace. Some want presence. Some want your time, your tears, your stories, your sensation, your life force. Doesn't mean they're evil. It means they're unfinished. And they've forgotten the boundary between remembrance and feeding. This is why discernment matters. Not every spirit around you is meant to remain. Not every voice in the dark is your grandmother. Not every chill is a sign of comfort. Because sometimes a spirit becomes so accustomed to your light, they forget it's not theirs. You didn't mean to open a door. You just missed them. You lit the candle. You whispered their name. You kept their photo close to your heart. And that's beautiful. Grief is sacred, but grief is also powerful. It softens the veil. It cracks the shell. It becomes a portal, especially when it remains unspoken, untended, or obsessed over. In those raw moments of missing, when your heart is wide open, you are radiating energy. You are broadcasting ache. And if a spirit is nearby, especially one that once knew you, they might feel it. They might come close. They might come often. They might begin to stay, not because they're malicious, but because you are the offering. You're warm, you're open, and you're still pouring. This is where the sacred remembrance can shift into energetic drain. You might find yourself tired, heavy in your body, dreaming of the dead constantly, unable to move past the loss. You feel pulled back over and over and over again. It's as if the grief is keeping them alive, and they are feeding on it to stay near. Sometimes this happens with full-blown altars. Sometimes it happens in silence, even devotion. When unchecked, it becomes a leak, especially if you don't know when to close the ritual. Even love can anchor a presence past its time. And sometimes what you thought was healing was really just repeating in sacred clothes. So the question becomes, are you keeping a spirit close because it brings comfort or because you fear what might come if you truly let them go? Some spirits aren't who they say they are. In fact, some were never spirits at all. There's something else, something that feeds on what the dead are often invited to receive: grief, remembrance, prayer, attention. They pose as familiar, as comforting, as safe. They mimic the voice of a lost parent, the presence of a child, the smell of a lover's perfume, the flicker of movement in a hallway where no one should be. And if you speak to them, they speak back. But their words grow strange. Their energy shifts. You feel heavier after contact, not comforted, not clearer, just depleted. This is not your loved one. This is something that knows what to wear. It studies your longing. It rehearses your memories. It plays the part, and it waits. These are false light entities. They do not come with fangs. They come with warmth. They mirror what you want to see until you no longer ask questions, because questioning breaks the illusion. Discernment severs the tether, and attention, unearned attention, is the currency they crave. They thrive in environments where pain is sacred, but unexamined, where emotion flows freely, but intention is unfocused, where grief has become a ritual with no closure. And yes, they may come through haunted objects, mirrors, electronics, EVPs, or dreams. But their favorite doorway is always the same: your belief that they are someone you miss. This isn't to scare you. This is to awaken your clarity, because not every voice in the veil deserves a chair at your table. Not every whisper from beyond is safe to answer, and not every comfort is holy. Hey, friends. Well, I've got you here. Every Friday, I post a YouTube only series called The Beyond Files, where I dive into some of the strangest clips from the internet: haunted hospitals, time traveler glitches, cursed objects, the usual. But if you're looking for something deeper, something encoded just for the ones walking the flame lit path, I've launched The Signal Path. It's a private tier over on Coffee, where I share short, powerful weekly audio transmissions. These are the recordings I don't post anywhere else. They're raw, sacred, and just $5 a month to unlock. So if you want to go deeper with me, head to the link in the description or visit coffee.com/tothespirit. Thanks for listening, and thank you for walking this path with me. Not all offerings are dangerous. Not all grief is a tether. And not all spirits want more than you're willing to give. But boundaries must exist, just like in life. The dead must be met with intention, not fear, not obsession, not passive yearning. Clarity is the difference. You can light a candle for your ancestors. You can speak their names with love. You can place an item on your altar. But you must also speak this clearly: this is a gift, not a contract. This is an honoring, not an invitation to enter. Set your terms. Protect your space. Close your rituals with authority. If you leave the door open, something may walk through that never belonged. And remember, spirit responds to tone. Desperation is a signal. Curiosity is a signal. Longing is a signal. But so is sovereignty. When you speak as a soul in alignment, as a keeper of your own flame, you become a space that cannot be taken, only engaged with on equal terms. So how do you offer safely? You speak aloud your intention. You name who the offering is for. You leave it in a clean space with reverence and no attachment to outcome. Then you release it. And you say aloud, "This ritual is now closed." Simple words, but to spirit, they ring like thunder. Whether you're at an ancestor's altar, visiting a grave, writing a letter to someone beyond the veil, or simply remembering them in quiet, what protects you is your awareness of the energetic transaction. Offer with love, offer with clarity, and always offer with a door you know how to shut. Sometimes the most sacred act is letting go, not because you've stopped loving them, not because they no longer matter, but because they're not meant to linger this long, and neither are you. There's a quiet wisdom in knowing when to blow out the candle, when to stop asking questions to a presence that hasn't answered in years, when to release the photo, the room, the ritual, not into forgetfulness, but into freedom. We honor the dead best by living. And sometimes our attempts to keep them close can keep both them and us from moving forward. So, how do you know when it's time to let go? You feel it in your body, a heaviness, a fatigue, a grief that no longer heals, just repeats. You may feel them less, but you can't stop thinking about them. You may feel compelled to light that candle again and again, not in peace, but in need, or worse. You begin to feel something new, off. The energy shifts. The dreams get stranger. You hear their voice, but it sounds like it's wearing a mask. This is the moment of discernment. Ask yourself, am I remembering or am I sustaining? Am I honoring or am I feeding? Is this them or is this something that has taken their shape? If you feel dread, confusion, or emotional depletion after a ritual, stop. Speak aloud. If this is not in my highest alignment, you must leave now and mean it. If this was your loved one, they will respect the boundary. If it wasn't, it will be revealed. There is no shame in this moment, only strength. We are not taught to discern when to let go. But if you want your offering to be clean, it must come from love, not compulsion. It must be sealed, not left open like a wound. The dead do not need you to suffer on their behalf, and your light is not a buffet. There's a difference between being a lantern and being the fuel. A lantern shines with intention. It carries light. It warms the space, but remains whole. Firewood? Firewood burns itself away just to keep something else going. And some of us were never taught the difference. We were taught that to love the dead meant to ache for them, to serve spirit meant to give until empty, to carry fire meant to be consumed by it. But here's the truth. You can offer light without burning out. You can honor your ancestors without sacrificing your future. You can tend a flame without setting yourself ablaze. The right kind of offering is the one that radiates, not the one that erodes. It is born of love, but shaped with clarity. It knows its edges. It knows when to dim. It knows when to shut the door, blow out the candle, and return to the breath. Because you are not here to be firewood. You are here to be the flame that remembers, guides, and chooses. That's what sacred presence is. Not martyrdom, not suffering, but sovereign warmth. So the next time you feel the urge to give something to the dead, ask, is this offering coming from love or from guilt? Is this act giving light or giving pieces of myself? You are allowed to pause, to question, to change the terms, because true spirit work, real ancestral healing, never asks you to bleed for it. It asks only that you burn clean. Some spirits arrive with a sense of entitlement, not because you called them, but because they believe you owe them. An ancestor who clings to bloodline guilt, a familial presence who whispers obligation, a war-wounded spirit who thinks you're their caretaker, a past life echo that tries to bind you with shame. They say, "You're the only one who listens. You were chosen to carry this. You can't stop now. What if I disappear?" And in your compassion, you stay, you give. You forget that they are the visitor and that you are the living one. This is how spiritual servitude begins. And it can be subtle, not a possession, not a haunting, but a slow erosion of self. You find yourself making space for them daily, mentally, emotionally. You feel called to keep giving, even when it costs you peace, even when it breaks your body, even when your own life stalls. Let me say this clearly. You don't owe any spirit your life, not even the ancestral ones, not even the tragic ones, not even the ones that helped you once and now demand more than you can give. Sacred connection is mutual. The moment it becomes manipulative, it is no longer sacred. There are spirits who deceive with stories of destiny, importance, past life contracts. But if the exchange is suffering, if the light dims every time they appear, if you feel chained to serve, that is not an agreement. That's a hijack. You may still choose to help, to offer, to honor, but only from sovereignty, because anything that demands your spirit to remain in servitude is not spirit worth saving. You are the flame, not the fuel, not the fix, not the debt bearer for every lingering ghost. And sometimes the most sacred offering you can make is the word no. Not all offerings are traps. Not all spirits are takers. Not all connection drains. There is a way to feed the sacred without feeding your soul away. Because when offerings are made in alignment with clear intention, clear boundaries, and clear reciprocation, something beautiful happens. The veil doesn't just thin, it sings. There are spirits who come gently, ancestors who arrive in dreams just to place a hand on your shoulder, guides who ask for nothing but your willingness to listen. To these spirits, offerings nourish both of you. A cup of tea at your altar, a candle lit with gratitude, a story shared aloud in their name, a breath whispered with love. These acts do not deplete, they expand, because the right spirit doesn't come to take. They come to walk beside you. You'll know the difference. Your body will feel lighter, not heavier. Your breath will deepen. Your dreams will soften. Your clarity will rise. When you're offering to the right spirit, your flame doesn't flicker in fear, it grows steady. And here's how to keep it sacred. State your intention. Say who the offering is for and why. Stay present. Don't offer in haste or distraction. End it clearly. Always close the ritual with final words. Trust your intuition. If something feels off, stop. Remember, you are not required. You are choosing, and your choice is power. There is no need to be afraid of honoring the dead, only a need to stay aware, to keep your fire tended, and to know that sacred connection is a two-way blessing. You give, they give, you both rise, and that is the heart of true offering. Every offering leaves a thread. Some become roots, grounding us in legacy, memory, and love. Others become chains, binding us to things long gone, or things that never should have entered. The key is not to stop offering. The key is to offer well, to know the difference between sacred flame and parasitic flicker, to feel when the dead are simply near and when they're reaching for something you didn't mean to give. You are not here to be haunted. You are here to remember, to witness, to walk with light that does not cost your soul to carry. So, we close the circle now. We take a breath. We name the spirits we love and release those we've fed too long. We seal the door behind our rituals and leave only the offering of clarity. You're not here to serve the dead. You are here to stand at the threshold and choose what to feed, what to keep, what to release. Let the ones who belong stay. Let the ones who are done go. And let the ones who wore false masks burn in the light of your knowing. You carry a lantern, not for them to cling to, but for you to walk forward unafraid. And in that light, only the true remain. Thank you for walking with me tonight through the liminal space between longing and offering, between memory and fire. If this transmission stirred something in you, take time to breathe, to sit, to ask, who am I feeding? And is it time to call that meal complete? You can support Truth and Fire by sharing this message, leaving a review, or sending this to someone who walks the line between the worlds with care. Until next time, stay strange, stay sovereign, stay spirited. Truth and Fire.